Hi, everybody. It's Joe Chaffee on this Saturday, and we're going to look at the overnight model runs. Going to start first with the European from last night because that one was the most aggressive yesterday in showing changes going on in the polar regions. And just want to show you now we're going into Christmas Eve, which is really setting up to be a very, very warm day. We have been talking about this since the middle of last week with the possibility of seeing temperatures getting into the 70s, and I think that possibility exists as this big ridge builds here just to the north of us, and warm air just comes streaming up the east coast ahead of a cold front. And then we get it on through. Now, keep an eye on what goes on up here, okay? And you can start to see we've got a ridge of high pressure building up through the Bering Sea along the date line north of Alaska, now in the Arctic on this side. We've got a ridge of high pressure building up also into Greenland on this side, and they basically come over the top. So you can see, at least from the standpoint of the European model, rising pressures across the poles attacking the polar vortex. And we have a bit of a change here in the southern stream. Now, we're only into December 29th here, so again, I want to emphasize two things. One is that this is not an event, this is a process, so we don't know where this process is going to take us, and we could very well wind up in a pattern that you may not like. Just because all of this is happening doesn't necessarily mean the outcome is going to be something that you might want to see. Now, the GFS, actually what I want to do is go back to the European for a second here. I want to show you the hemispheric view because that's got has a little bit more of a vision of what's going on, and we're going to take this out here. Let me back this up, and you can watch now. This is where the ridge is coming from. This is Europe here, and you have a big ridge of high pressure aloft that builds there. Now you can see early on here, we're still into this week, how the vortexes are all just kind of scattered along, but it's really one big complex that sits all across the Arctic region, and then the ridge just builds right in there. See it? There it goes, and it builds right across the top, and you have it also coming in on both sides. So this is something that's important to keep an eye on. And you see the flow here from the Pacific. You still have the flow west to east across across Canada, but it's a bit of a colder look. And now we're going to jump over to the GFS model so we can take a look at that. There we go. GFS kind of comes at this a little differently, but it still has the same idea. You can see here, even though it still has a big ridge off the southeast coast, and this is at the end of next week, that's not a surprise because we're really talking about what will happen beyond this point. But you can see here the same idea. We're now looking at December 29th, and as we go forward, the pressures along the poles stay high. You start to see here a bit of a vortex that comes into northwestern Hudson's Bay and kind of just rotates around there. So you're definitely getting pressure rises here in the poles. Now, the pattern across the U.S. here, the way it looks, is not exactly ideal for cold and snow because you're going to have a westerly flow across Canada. But again, I really don't want to focus on what it literally does because we know that's going to change 100 times between now and then. And rather, the broad vision here of pressures rising across the poles is very important because that changes the profile across North America. So it looks like the models want to go at this polar vortex attack in the longer range, and they maybe not come at it exactly the same way, but the result may be the same. We'll see what this is going to mean in terms of short-term daily weather when we get there. We do know that as we look at this week, as we go into Christmas Eve, just want to punch that up here, and we'll put up a surface map so you can see. Oops. Got to get the right button. There we go. As far as this week is concerned, okay, we rebound, temperatures rebound right away On Monday, we'll be back into the 50s fairly quickly. Then we'll, whoops, doesn't want to work. There we go. And you can see the high moves offshore. And here we go on Tuesday. We start to get into some rain, although every run seems to now be a little bit less bullish. I was really hoping we'd get into a good soaking rain Tuesday night into Wednesday, but now it looks a little less bullish. The warm front not as strong because the low is further west here and not as deep. But that warm front gets through here, and Christmas Eve with a cyclone up in northern Minnesota, you can see the warm fronts already in through central and northern New England. This is really horrible as far as for the ski areas are concerned. But this is very, very warm air. You have a west-southwest wind, which is another reason why I think temperatures could easily climb up through the 60s to around 70. And maybe a shower with the cold front. If this is right, that comes through dry, and we turn a little cooler, but not really cold for Christmas Day. It'll be a little more reasonable. So we're on our way to what could be record highs in a blast furnace on Christmas Eve. So have a good day, a good Saturday. Be safe while you're out there shopping. A lot of crazy people driving on the roads. And we'll update this later on today when we look at the new afternoon model runs.